said, where'd you wanna go? How much you wanna risk? I'm not looking for somebody with some superhuman gifts.
Chemical bonding. What is chemical bonding? Chemical bonding refers to the formation of a chemical bond between two or more atoms, molecules, or ions to give rise to a chemical compound. These chemical bonds are what keep the atoms together in the resulting compound. The attractive force, which holds various constituents, atom, ions, etc., together and stabilizes them by the overall loss of energy, is known as chemical bonding. Therefore, it can be understood that chemical compounds are reliant on the strength of the chemical bonds between its constituents. The stronger the bonding between the constituents, the more stable the resulting compound would be. The opposite also holds true. If the chemical bonding between the constituents is weak, the resulting compound would lack stability and would easily undergo another reaction to give a more stable chemical compound or containing stronger bonds. To find stability, the atoms try to lose their energy. Whenever matter interacts with another form of matter, a force is exerted on one by the other. When the forces are attractive in nature, the energy decreases. When the forces are repulsive in nature, the energy increases. The attractive force that binds the two atoms together is known as the chemical bond. Important theories on chemical bonding. Albrecht Kossel and Gilbert Lewis were the first to explain the formation of chemical bonds successfully in the year 1916. They explained chemical bonding on the basis of the inertness of noble gases. So, Lewis' theory of chemical bonding. An atom can be viewed as a positively charged kernel, the nucleus plus the inner electrons, and the outer shell. The outer shell can accommodate a maximum of 8 electrons only. The 8 electrons present in the outer shell occupy the corners of a cube which surround the kernel. The atoms having octet configuration, 8 electrons in the outermost shells, thus symbolize a stable configuration. Atoms can achieve this stable configuration by forming chemical bonds with other atoms. So this chemical bond can be formed either by gaining or losing an electrons, or Nazi or MgCl2, or in some cases due to the sharing of an electron, or F2. Kossel's theory of chemical bonding. Noble gases separated the highly electronegative halogens and the highly electropositive alkali metals. Halogens can form negatively charged ions by gaining an electron, whereas alkali metals can form positively charged ions by losing an electron. These negatively charged ions and positively charged ions have a noble gas configuration, that is 8 electrons in the outermost shell. The general electronic configuration of noble gases, or except helium, is given by Ns squared Np to the power of 6. As unlike charges attract each other, these unlike charged particles are held together by a strong force of electrostatic attraction existing between them. For example, MgCl2, the magnesium ion and chlorine ions are held together by force of electrostatic attraction. This kind of chemical bonding existing between two unlike charged particles is known as an electrovalent bond. Types of chemical bonds. So, when substances participate in chemical bonding and yield compounds, the stability of the resulting compound can be gauged by the type of chemical bonds it contains. The type of chemical bonds formed vary in strength and properties. There are four primary types of chemical bonds which are formed by atoms or molecules to yield compounds. These types of chemical bonds include ionic bonds, covalent bonds, hydrogen bonds, polar bonds. Ionic bonding. Bonding is a type of chemical bonding which involves a transfer of electrons from one atom or molecule to another. Here, an atom loses an electron which is in turn gained by another atom. When such an electron transfer takes place, one of the atoms develops a negative charge and is called the anion. The other atom develops a positive charge and is called the cation. The ionic bond gains strength from the difference in charge between the two atoms. The greater the charge disparity between the cation and the anion, the stronger the ionic bond. Covalent bond. A covalent bond indicates the sharing of electrons between atoms. Compounds that contains carbon, or also called organic compounds, commonly exhibit this type of chemical bonding. The pair of electrons which are shared by two atoms now extend around the nuclei of atoms, leading to the creation of a molecule. Polar covalent bonding. Covalent bonds can be either bipolar or non-polar in nature. In polar covalent chemical bonding, electrons are shared unequally since the more electronegative atom pulls the electron pair closer to itself and away from the least electronegative atom. Water is an example of such a polar molecule. A difference in charge arises in different areas of atom due to the uneven spacing of the electrons between the atoms. One end of the molecule tends to be partially positively charged and the other end tends to be partially negatively charged. Hydrogen bonding. Hydrogen bonding compared to ionic and covalent bonding. Hydrogen bonding is a weaker form of chemical bonding. It is a type of polar covalent bonding between oxygen and hydrogen wherein the hydrogen develops a partial positive charge. This implies that the electrons are pulled closer to the more electronegative oxygen atom. This creates a tendency for the hydrogen to be attracted towards the negative charge of any neighboring atom. This type of chemical bonding is called a hydrogen bond and is responsible for many of the properties exhibited by water. What is ionic bond? The bond formed as a result of strong electrostatic forces of attraction between a positively and negatively charged species is called an electrovalent or ionic bond. The positively and negatively charged ions are aggregated in an ordered arrangement called the crystal lattice, which is stabilized by the energy called the lattice enthalpy. Bond enthalpy. When atoms come close together, the energy is released due to the chemical bonding between them. The amount of energy required to break 1 mole of bonds of a type so as to separate the molecule into individual gaseous atoms is called bond dissociations enthalpy or bond enthalpy. Bond enthalpy is usually expressed in kg mol to the power of -1. Thank you.
He said, where'd you